Hello there, welcome to a new show. I'm going to look at two films today, which is Matrix Resurrections and Spider-Man No Way Home. I'm going to do a non-spoiler section and a spoiler section because they're new films, but they're both films you can't really talk about without spoilers after a certain point. So it's a case of, okay, if you haven't seen the film, listen to my early part. If you have, you can watch all of it. So it's just that kind of thing I'm going to do. It should be simple enough. These are two big releases at Christmas. I mean, there has been other ones, but a lot of them just fell away. I mean, they did a West Side Story film that just no one might see. Even though I've heard good things about it. But these are the two biggies, really. One of which I adored and one of which I thought was fine, but nothing great. So I'll start with the fine but nothing great, which was Spider-Man Far From Home. Not Far From Home, No Way Home. They're all home in the titles. It's kind of annoying because they all kind of run together. So, you know, it's like, just like the films actually. I mean, the big thing about the MCU Spider-Man films is that Spider-Man seems to work better in the Avengers films, really, or in the Captain America film when he's guest starring. In his own films in the MCU, I think they've been the least of his films. And that continues here. And personally, I feel like the films are better than the Andrew Garfield ones, but they're not as good as the Sam Raimi, Tobey Maguire ones, which are more distinctive and, for better or worse, they feel that they've got some gravitas to them that these ones just don't have. I mean, they really are kind of forgettable, they're interchangeable, and they're smart arse, but when I think about them, they're the Marvel movies you forget easiest. They don't really have that much beyond, oh, Spider-Man's been a smart arse, Spider-Man's doing this, doing that. But there's really not that much to the drama of them. I mean, the things I remember about these films more than anything is usually the villains. Even though they're not great villains, they tend to cast good actors to play them, so they feel like there's a bit weightier. But they're kind of, so far they've been kind of meh for me, really. I mean, Homecoming was the return to Marvel MCU. It was fine, but it felt kind of bland. It felt like you'd seen it all before. I mean, the best stuff was really the Vulture stuff, Michael Keaton. It was like a high school movie, ultimately. The second one I thought was a lot better, which is Far From Home, which is when it's Peter Parker going on a trip. It's after the Avengers movies, and it's a kind of light-hearted film that's kind of a palate cleanser, but also dealing with the aftermath of the events of the Avengers Endgame. That one worked better. Plus, the Mysterio as a villain. Mysterio was always my villain I really liked, and Jake Gyllenhaal was good as Mysterio. But it's still, it was a big step up from Homecoming, which I thought was the blandest Spider-Man film, you know. But it was still one of those things, is that it was good in spots. It's not memorable. It's not one of the most memorable Spider-Man films or Marvel films. It just was like, it's fine. It's one of those things, it's a series that's lucky to have a really good cast to keep it going, but they really haven't had stories that really worked, and I've been avoiding giving Spider-Man gravitas, which is a big problem. They try and do it in this one, but the problem with this one is that it's kind of predictable. It's really predictable. Like, the solution to the problem I found to be obvious from, like, minute 10. Like, there's a scene in the trailer that sets up the film, and from that scene, you can work at the end of the film. And the problem is, from then on in, for me, was always like, you're marking time to get to this ending. There's no other ending that really works. It's so obvious what the ending has to be. So, you mark time, you have fun scenes, but you don't really have that much ingenuity. It's really like a three-ring circus type of movie. It brings in lots of characters from the other movies. There's some good moments in there, dramatic moments, but they come in and out and in and out, and it's like I kept on reading about how traumatic this film is for the characters and stuff. Not really. There's bad things happen, but that's Spider-Man film. The bad things always happen in Spider-Man films. That's part of the character and part of the world. He's a character who basically gets crapped on a lot, which is part of the charm of the character. He never gets any luck. That's the character of Spider-Man. It's like, so this one is still kind of like, yeah, it's fine. Nothing great. It's entertaining. It's like a film that I'd watch maybe once every couple of years. Maybe. Depends how generous I'm feeling. But it's not one that, even this one, it's not one that is, to me, is the same level as the Raimi ones, which had much more eccentricity and weirdness. You like them or don't like them, they are made by Sam Raimi. You can tell who the director was of those films. And they do have personality. And they do have a Spider-Man who really is crapped on a lot. In these films, it doesn't happen as much. He's kind of the spoiled Spider-Man. Everyone's always out to help him. So that's the kind of problem with this film for me. It's just like, it's okay. There's good action scenes, but not great action scenes. It's like, all the action scenes, you can tell what's going to happen in the action scenes before they happen. There's nothing in these action scenes that will surprise you. They're fun, but there's nothing unique to them. You know, you see bits in the trailers, yep, everything that happens in these action scenes are pretty much what you expect would happen in these action scenes. There's nothing wonderfully unique in the writing of this film. But it is enjoyable. Marvel does enjoyable films. It's just that this was the hype of Spider-Man multiverse villains, I thought was more interesting than what we actually got. We got something that was pretty much what I'd have guessed going into the film. It's like, what if you wrote what the kind of base film could be for this, that's what you get. That's a shame, but that's what you get. It's just this series has not been amazing in any way. And yes, that was intentional, that was a joke. The Matrix, on the other hand, continues to be interesting, even though it's more controversial than Spider-Man. Even this version, this new film, the Spider-Man's got better reviews than this one has. But I'd say Matrix Resurrections is a far superior film, far more interesting. There's a lot more going on in it. It's taking chances. It's about the whole thing is about the idea of what happens to the past when you nostalgize it. What happens to the past when you commodify it. How, when it loses its meaning, it's getting sold to you as a entity. Like the actual meaning of the stories of the past, of our franchise, of our history. When they start getting sold to you, they lose their meaning because you're omitting stuff and you're lying to your audience and you're creating things and you're trying to put things in a box and take a bit of complexity. And that's what the film's about. It's the idea of what's nostalgia and the killer of nostalgia and the complexity of it and how you do it to yourself and how it's cowardness, you know. And it's about everything that the Spider-Man film just embraces as something that's, oh, it's cool. This one is like, nah, there's problems to this thing. There are issues here. And the film also takes what happened in the first three films and puts them years later and actually says, okay, what would happen from this setup? So it takes the idea of what happened after Matrix Revolutions down the line and what the complexities of what actually occurred because of the ending of that trilogy. And it does that in a very satisfying way if you're interested in ideas. If you're interested in not getting coddled and not getting told everything you think is wonderful, it's much more complex than that. It's about evolution. It's about the evolution of an idea, evolution of a society within the constructs of a action-adventure romance. That's what it's about. That's what's wonderful about it, is it takes what's essentially a blockbuster and tries to like tear it apart and see what's actually going on under the surface. What's the complexities? What are the bumps of things you're not comfortable with these ideas? And that's why it's had a divisive response, because it is obviously romantic. It has a romantic core to it. It also has a suspense beat that's actually much more about dissolution of hope and dissolution of your own ideals. That's the suspense beat, not the end of the world. It's about a personal thing. It's like, how do you move on? Which is much more complicated than, oh, we have to save the world, we have to save this or save that. It's different feeling. I mean, Spider-Man actually goes for that as well. It's not trying to save the world, at least not until the end. Because you've seen the trailers, you know it's going to come. But it is, they both go for it, but I think Matrix actually opened about it, and Spider-Man's kind of like very nostalgic and kind of lazy. Which I'll get to in the spoilers. But the new Matrix is beautiful. But I would definitely say try not know anything about it. I'm trying to be vague in the non-spoiler section, but try and give you an idea of what's going on. But I need to go into spoilers now. But definitely, if you have a chance, watch The Matrix. Spider-Man is going to be around everywhere anyway, it doesn't matter. Matrix is going to have a much rougher ride because a lot of cynics will not like this film. But it is a beautiful film. It is a wonderfully weird film. And it has been getting some good reviews, actually. I mean, if when it first came out, it was getting kind of mixed reviews, but then as more reviews come out, it actually is being up rather than down, which is nice. It's like a lot of people are digging what it is. It's like, it's not the same old from before. They're trying to do something. But it's one of those things that if someone doesn't like it, they will hate it. And it's almost like it's an offence because they're not doing what they expect from the Matrix. Which I'll get into in the spoilers as well. So now here's a spoiler section. Okay, I'm trying to, even here, it's kind of like, this is a first version of it, because I've ultimately, I haven't had a chance to sit with these films for too long, so obviously these are my first impressions. Spider-Man has a lot less to say, ultimately. Spider-Man is literally about, what happens if all the villains come into this universe from the old films, and what happens if all the two Spider-Men also come into this universe. And the idea is what Peter Parker makes a mistake with the multiverse and then tries to save the villains and turn them sane and make everything better, and what the sacrifices he'll make to do that. So it's a very uplifting film. It's like, oh, Peter Parker's a great hero, and despite his flaws, he gets the job done, blah, blah, blah. That's kind of the idea. It is as a romantic, nostalgic thing that is as far away from real life as possible. It really is far away from what actually happened in the circumstance. It's a romantic vision through and through without cynicism. Which is good and bad. It's good because it is enjoyable to see some of these actors back in the roles. I mean, the fun part is seeing some of these actors coming in from better films and reprising their roles, really, ultimately. I mean, it's really nice to see Willem Dafoe back. It's really nice to see Alfred Molina back as Doc Ock. It's nice to see Tobey Maguire back. The other ones, less so, but some of the actors have redeemed themselves. I mean, Andrew Garfield comes across a lot better in this film than he did in his own movies, because they kind of redeem that character a little bit and they actually make it work. But the thing is, see if you were actually watching this film and this was all these characters come in and they were played by actors you never had other films with, would these scenes work as well? And the answer is completely not. It would not work, like, at all. Because this is basically a plot hole in the movie. There's so many plot holes in this film that if you weren't nostalgic watching the actors and enjoying their performances, you would spot a mile away. And instead it's just a case of, yeah, well, we got to see the actors again in these parts. We can ignore the plot holes. That's what the film is. It's an easy sit. You know, it's a sentimentality thing. It's like, yeah, you always wanted to see this, we're going to give it to you. Enjoy. Don't look at the plotting too much, please. And you don't. I mean, there's fun stuff early on with Tom Holland dealing with Doctor Strange, and their relationship's fun and, you know, a grown up and young teenager type of thing, you know, where both of them should know better, especially Doctor Strange, who's a complete idiot in this movie. He makes most of the problems of his fault. Literally, if he just said, okay, you just spell so people can forget who you are because of all these problems you've got. Is there anyone else you want to keep out the spell? tell me before we start. That's all that was needed through this whole movie to not work, to avoid happening. It would take him 2 minutes of not being a douche to actually deal with it. There's stuff like that. There's a plot where basically they have to try and solve these villains' problems in the most basic way possible. Like, solve this problem, take this guy's power, help the Green Goblin not to be a multiple personality lunatic. Oh yeah, we've got a serum for that. Like any other film, you wouldn't be sentimental body, you'd be like, what? The films like that, you really have to just ignore the stupidities of this film, because there are plenty. There's so many. It really is that stupid a lot of the time. But it is enjoyable. But it is enjoyable mainly because of the actors. That's why it still feels bland. I'm actually thinking there's no scene here that's done better than other films. There's a scene in the middle where Aunt May dies where she gets killed and gives a great power comes great responsibility scene, which is fine, but we've seen that twice before, and we've seen it done a lot better in the original Sam Raimi film. And this one, it just comes across as kind of like, we've had a lot of jokey scenes, and this comes, suddenly it's a whiplash, this dramatic scene, then it comes from someone else entirely. So it's in the middle of these other scenes that are more fun, and it just doesn't have the same impact. And the film's all over the place. It's just like that the whole time. It's just, this happens. It's like, there's about 5 films in here, and your goodwill and having fun with it allows you to watch it and not be like, what? Because the whole film was like that. The whole film has tons of scenes. The best stuff ultimately comes into interacting with the actors. I mean, basically, when Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield show up, it kicks the film into another gear, ultimately. And whenever you get when see the villains, there's less villain than you think there is going to be. I mean, everybody from the Spider-Man to the villains, they all have a roughly the same screen time. It's still a Tom Holland film, but ultimately his dramatic line is very predictable, and he's doing the best he can, and he is good in the film, but it is a very predictable process with not many variations. So it's okay. He's not getting A material. He's getting some decent stuff. He's not getting the best stuff. Is the best way to put it. So he was getting better stuff in Avengers movies than he is in his own movies. So and basically when the other 2 Spider-Men show up and you have them interacting, it works much better. I mean, there's whole distractions. I mean, there's at least 20 minutes in even there with those 3 that plot-wise you don't need, but for entertainment value you do need, because it really helps the film. For the basic story, it helps him learn the lessons he needs to learn, and it's good to see these 3 different versions of the character. I mean, what ones you like most would depend probably on which ones you prefer from the past. I've always been the Sam Raimi Tobey Maguire thing, and I liked his character more in this one than the other 2 in lots of ways, because he was like the sane one in this film. He's like the grown-up of the 3 who's been through it all, and he's trying to make sure, okay, you don't make that mistake, He's kind of like the parent figure of the Peter Parkers, which works really nicely, because he's the least loud of the 3, but he's the one who's actually eyeing everybody to make sure no one does anything really stupid. So that helps. He brings a gravitas that really helps. And his introduction scene is really terrific, because you get into he's a very different version of the character than others. And it brings it back to who he is, but also he's a much older version of that. The Andrew Garfield thing works better because he's a character at the end of his tether. He's been through a lot, and he's pretty much down on himself, and ultimately the story with him is them putting him back up and actually getting his self-confidence back up, because he is going through a bad patch. And that works better than the Tom Holland story. Because the Tom Holland story is, he makes lots of mistakes, and he learns from them, but it's kind of like, it hasn't been written with the strength it really needs. There's lots of little dodges throughout it. You know, they set stuff up, then they ignore it, then they set other stuff and ignore it, and he's trying to work with the script, and he's not always been supported. When you give him something good, he's good. It's just that the writing form could have been better. So it's one of those things: is the actor's doing a good job. It's the problem of the film is not to do with him. So it's that thing is like, but he's getting the film stolen from him from there too, and some of the villains in a way. He does have a good ending, which actually where basically everyone has to forget who he is for the spell that brought everyone into the universe to be broken, which was set up at the beginning. It was so obvious at the beginning what's going to happen. It was like it took away all the drama from it. So I found it kind of unsatisfying because I knew it was coming like a mile off. It was a thing that was always coming at you, and there's always this other stuff in it where it's like, we have to save these villains and we're going to try and make them right. But they're going back to the other university at the end, and either they're going to die, or they're going to think, okay, I'm not going to do this now. I'm saved, so I won't go through the death thing and think it would cause my death. But that wouldn't change all the timelines of those universes, or create alternate spikes on these other universes. Who knows? The Marvel time travel multiverse rules are all over the place. They're not consistent. You just try not to think about it too much. I think the idea is, we're just telling this story. Peter Parker helping these guys get redemption, which is nice enough. It's just like you wish they'd actually put the effort in more to the script before they started filming. That's my big thing with this film is there was lots of good stuff there. It was just like you needed that 2 months just to knuckle down and get these beats knocked out. There's lots of stuff in there that are used. They cover a lot of stuff with jokes, and it's like, well, actually, just a pre-thought about this would actually have made the character look a lot saner, or make the character give you some more respect for the character. Sometimes it's good they don't do that. I mean, there is a mistake early on that the Peter Parker makes because he doesn't go and chase up on something that it's like, it's a mistake, but it's very human. It's like, okay, I can buy him doing that. There's other stuff. It's like goes throughout. It's like, why are you? It's that kind of idiot plot thing where the person's an idiot for the plot to work, and sometimes it falls into that too much. Because there is a big difference between character flaws creating drama, which it does in part, but which is kind of the theme of the film, solving your own character flaws. But the film needs better writing for it. But that's my view of this film. It's enjoyable but frustrating. But at times it does feel like Tom Holland's a host to other actors, rather than having his own thing. You know, and there are really good moments. There's a great moment at the end between Maguire and Tom Holland where Maguire helps him avoid making a big mistake, which is really nicely done. There's almost that it's nice done. Like, why couldn't the rest be as good as this? All it took was a few more months of working on the script to get it there. The building blocks were there. It just needed more work. And if you look at Hawkeye, which had just come out at the same time, they had a straggly plot set in New York and all this stuff happening. And that was a much more satisfying story. So Marvel can do it if they knuckle down. I mean, Hawkeye was a much better story than the Spider-Man film. And it was going into a lot of there was a similar feel to it in lots of ways about the past and what you before in the future. But it was more satisfying because it was actually concentrating the characters who were there and then and developing them. So that's my view of that. It's enjoyable, but I'm not going to be. It's no Spider-Man 2, and it's no Into the Spider-Verse, which is the much better version of this multiverse film. That worked so much better in this one. That's why it's easy to be hard in this film, because it's like, you've just done it perfectly. Now you haven't. Now you've done the lazy version of it. So anyway, that's Spider-Verse. No. I've got so many Spider-Man things. That's No Way Home. Okay, Matrix Resurrections is a much better beast. It feels like they've actually spent time on the actual construction of the story. You may not like the construction of the story, but they actually spent time on it. It's one of those films that's like, I've definitely watched this quite a few times to work out all the details. But what's really nice about it is the idea is like the Matrix is it's still a prison, but it's not the only prison people make for themselves. It's a prison for people, but it has evolved from Revolutions. When Neo changed it all in Revolutions and went through the whole system via Smith and rewrote stuff and created a new Matrix, really, he changed a lot, both for the humans and for the machines. But it's not idealistic. What's really good, this is the fallout from that, where they realise that a lot of people have left the Matrix and their power supplies have been dwindling. So it's like, how do you keep people involved in the Matrix and corrupt it all again so that you can keep your power supply here? So the machines have gone into this new system of actually creating these because Neo's through the Matrix now because of what he did in the third one. He's actually linked to everything, basically. He can manipulate the Matrix. So instead of letting his body die at the end of Revolutions, they take his body and Trinity's body because both bodies were there, and have actually kept them alive, put them back, kept them alive, and put them back into the Matrix, but kept them going, bodies aging at a very slow rate, so that their kind of presence actually affects the Matrix, their mental state affects it, because they're both, because you find out Neo wasn't the one until he really met Trinity, and their bond's the thing that really drove him to do what he did. So they use that bond as a motor to actually frustrate it, so that the people left in the Matrix actually have become much more jaded. They're not seeing a new world, they're seeing a world that has just collapsed into itself. It's like, you still have to bring people out and show them a different world, and so many of them really don't want to go, and so many of them are apathetic on their phones, and they become affected by this program throughout the Matrix, which is influenced by Neo and Trinity, which is the idea that both of them are close enough together so they can perceive each other's presence, but they never really see each other until when the film starts. We see Neo is now trapped in a life he hates, and you find out that the Matrix is now a video game that people are playing. So they're using their history for entertainment, just as we do for, Call of Duty and, all that stuff. And the idea of regurgitating your past and not being respectful of the past, and the past becoming something that's just exploited horribly, and the kind of social malaise it causes in your soul, the sense of lack of purpose to you, in the sense of how it just rots your soul, especially if you become the perpetrator of it, even though Neo really isn't. He's kind of like, it's been done by machines. They've actually used literal images from his past to say the fiction, to say he's this great creator of this video game. Which is really nice. It actually interpret what the Matrix is, and the idea the Matrix has become this commodified thing, which is what the Chelsea's talked about a lot in the makings of the original Matrix, was this idea of a commodification of like something that becomes a symbol of faith, gets so diluted through the years, it's become a symbol, and it's not actually faith anymore, and it loses all its meaning. And it's how do you restart your own meaning? That's what this film is, basically. And it's really wonderful, because it is romantic, but it is cynical about human beings and what they are. Some people are saying this is a film where people don't want to make the film, and it's like, I don't get how you can see that in this film. It's about evolution. The human beings have evolved as well. There's a city now in that has been shielded from everybody, which is basically the new Zion, but it's run by people and machines. Machines work with people. Machines were touched by what Neo did, and have evolved to say, we don't want to do what they were doing, what our forefathers were doing. We want to change and work with you, and programs can create bodies that actually can work through as well, and it's an evolving structure. So Morpheus has died 60 years later, But there's a program that Neo did, probably subconsciously, that mixed elements of Morpheus and Agent Smith into one character. It drove him a bit mad and eccentric. But he's like the person that needed to be freed to create the system again of finding Neo and starting it all off again. So the actual, like, the kind of rebellious ones in the new system, the new city, are the ones who are powering this through, and they're actually finding the clues that Neo's left through his subconscious, because he knows, some part of him knows he's in a prison, and he's in a prison of depression, and the way to get him out of it is actually to show images from the past, or almost Brechtian versions of the past that are sort of the same but not, where you have a character who is a different part before suddenly interacting as an agent and suddenly realising this is wrong, something's off, and he's interpreting his world in a different way, and he's trying to make sense of what the manipulations are in his world through the text that he is acting in. So there's all this wonderful stuff going on in the first third. And then, as Neo comes out of the world and is very confused, and because he actually thinks that the Matrix was his own invention, so he thinks he's going mad. So they're using mental health problems as a way to keep Neo trapped. So they're just remaking the world around him and creating this world that everyone's unsatisfied with. The way that our world kind of is now. So they've updated it. So the idea is that certain machines have not moved on. And there's a war within the machines, basically. Like, for power within what happened after the Matrix. That some machines want to evolve and some machines want to keep it the way it was and just adapt from that. And the machines that were wanting to adapt were destroyed, and the new ones evolved the Matrix. But as time has gone on, their hold is starting to fall away as people realise this doesn't really work. So the whole point of this film is getting rid of that, change the machine culture to push it back to where the original intention was, which was to actually push forward. Because some machines have already moved off in a way and have actually worked with humans to try and evolve with them. You found out that Zion is either collapsed or it's a prison-like structure where the human beings have become, like, focused on their own way of seeing things that are anti-machine, and it's kind of like, so those machines are collapsed in their own way and they're very anti-machine, so it's like they become prisoners of their own ideologies as well. So these different ideologies of a peace was given, and then but the certain extremists of both sides have split off and caused havoc for both sides, and there's a group trying to actually find a middle way forward. So the film's about a middle way forward, and Neo kind of trying to work his way through that, trying to work his way through to find meaning again from the lack of meaning, and to find his purpose again with the experience of before, and to actually see what the evolution has been. Because this is not a new character, this is literally Neo. He did not die. He thought he died, but he didn't die. And he's starting to slowly get his powers back, and his powers are starting to influence Trinity. You're getting more and more about what's actually going on, because she's been trapped by family, and these creepy new, instead of having the machines take over people in the Matrix, now they've all these bots who are just people living lives. So the machines have actually created these bots that are actually can be manipulated by the machine world to commit suicide, do anything they want, but they're actually having lives off the side. They're just asked to do certain things sometimes. So it's the idea of the machines that evolve in a way that they're not even controlling. They're using this as a weapon, but those evolving, bots have a life of their own now. So they're becoming their own identity, which is different from what originally was. So it's a evolving world that no one's fully in control of, but they need to get rid of the power structure that's trying to put it down a certain way rather than letting it flow in its own way and let it evolve into something more interesting. So that's the idea of the new film, is like, how do you evolve? There are some nice jokes, like Trinity's husband, who's a bot. She's a bot husband, a bot family, her husband's played by the director of John Wick, who was the stunt double for Keanu in the first 3 movies. So he's literally the stunt double, and Keanu's ideal life now in this movie, or Neo's life in this movie. So it's really funny little moment. And there's lots of other things like that that go through. So it is a kind of play around with how you approach the Matrix and the fanboyism of the Matrix. And I think some people hate this film because it's parodying what they view the reality of the Matrix as. They want the Matrix to be cool, but they don't want to look into what's actually about. It's really about like trying to move on, trying to see what your structures are, and then try to evolve beyond those structures. Not this bullet time. The bullet time is just the cool thing to sell the ideas. But they get attached to the idea. They get attached to the idea of the one being a super potent figure that was just like them, but who could do everything. And the sequel said, no, that's not the case. The one has to be part of this community. And they keep on bring that back again and again. And it's something that does not sit well with a certain fanboy who wants the Neo character to be super cool and, untouchable. And the films actually criticise that all the time, and I think especially this one. And I think it causes discomfort for some fans because it's realising the thing you loved isn't really, you've misunderstood it. It's not really what it's about, and basically certain fans of certain nostalgia are really kind of the Agent Smiths of this world, ultimately, for what the film's trying to say. And there's an Agent Smith back, and he's evolved too in interesting ways. It's not entirely fleshed out, but the feeling is he's in a kind of point where he's still evolving. He's still working stuff out. He's not the same powerful thing he was before. His function in the last trilogy is done. He's been used by other people, and he's becoming something else. He's an antagonist, but he's becoming something else entirely as well. And you have certain things, there's certain programs from the old world, like the Architect and the Oracle, have been deleted. But certain characters like Sati, who was small in the third movie, is now important in this one, because she's basically taking the Oracle's place as a leader of the person who's organising it all. So there's always someone new coming in. So it does take up the idea that there's always going to be someone to fill the gap. If someone falls, there's always some new representation of that same figure. It does it in a much classier way than the Star Wars sequels have tried to do. Of course, people are saying, "Oh, this is the last Jedi of the Matrix movies." It's not. It's really not. I like both these. I like The Last Jedi and this, but they're doing different things. It's only because they're criticising some of the status quo of the previous films, but that's implied anyway. I mean, like George Lucas was doing that in the Star Wars prequels. And they hated that as well. And this one it's actually about there's an actual point made that the problems with this society is the people who have latched onto certain ideologies of the past. They've gone for the unhealthy things of this is what defines me. Like the machines have done it, and we define the Matrix to do something that's manipulative and very difficult for people to escape from in a different way. Or the humans who have become like insular, and Zion has become a hellhole, and it's very much about the idea that you can trap yourself in your ideology, or you can try and move on and try and be kind and move on. Which this film is about, being kind ultimately is a big thing here. So Matrix is wonderful. I'm a big fan of all the Matrix films. I'm a big Wachowski fan. I really think that these directors have done some really good stuff. This is only Lana Wachowski this time, not Lily. She's going to have done something else. But I'm a big fan of their films they've made. And, they're trying difficult stuff all the time. They're never doing the same thing again and again. And they are still using their clout to do interesting material. It doesn't have to be for everybody. It's never going to be for everybody, but I'm really glad about Matrix Resurrections. The series can end here, fine. I'm quite happy for it to end here. I think it's fine to end here. it expands on a lot of stuff from the sequels that people didn't like. It expands a lot of stuff from the original. It's trying to expand on the whole universe. It's not trying to expand on just one thing to make certain people happy. It's expanding on bits of the first one, bits of this one. And the idea is at the end where basically they fly off like they did in the first one, but they're flying off in a much more mature fashion because it's two people rather than one, and it's also people who have learned from the mistakes of the past, and they now know what they can control, what they can't control. So it's a much more mature thing, rather than just being like, oh, we can do this because we're superheroes. It's a very different feeling. There's power there now, but there's also a kind of modesty. People have grown up and have actually went through shit and actually had their hearts broken, basically, repeatedly over decades. So it's a really beautiful film. It's really nice, wonderfully done. I hope you give it a chance. I hope you really enjoyed it, same way I did. So that's me. Spider-Man and The Matrix. The Matrix came out way ahead, for ambition and just for the way it was done. This film was made for half the money of the Spider-Man film, and it doubled imagination. You know, it's been lambasted by certain online critics, like laughably bad. I was like, do you have eyes? This is like insane. So anyway, Matrix Resurrections, a very nice Christmas present if you like a certain type of filmmaking. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll be back with an end of the year video, but that's more or less me for the year now. That's my last standalone video for the year. Okay, bye for now.